Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tales of the Pod podcast. My name's Michaela, I'm your host.
I'm your co-host, Nick. How's it going, guys?
So this week we're going to be talking about our favorite songs.
Sorry.
We're going with it. I can't edit it out. We're going with it.
I don't know. I couldn't hold it together.
Anyways,
right, sorry.
So we're going to be talking about our favorite summer horror movies, which the best way I can describe this is like, I was telling Nick earlier, can I look at you or are you going to laugh?
You can look at me, I'm sorry.
It's like I wouldn't watch The Shining in the middle of July. Like, that's the best way I can describe it, is they don't necessarily have to be, like, Camp Crystal Lake, things like that, but, like, I just wouldn't watch them in the winter, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, I get what you're saying about them, but, like, the ones I kind of picked, like, it kind of deals, like, it's like a summery kind of feel.
That's how mine are,
you know?
Yeah.
It would, like, you wouldn't picture this taking place in winter. I mean, it couldn't, obviously, because it's, like, you know, some of them are in camp or, you know, or whatever. But that's, I guess they're just good horror movies to watch, I guess, in the summer that are inspiring of summertime fun.
That's kind of where I'm at, like, some movies are so, like, dark and heavy, and I just feel like they're more of a winter vibe when I'm, like, trapped in the house.
Sure.
These are more, like, summery fun, you know, getting killed in the woods with all your friends, wearing shorts,
out by the lake, getting chopped up, you know.
Typical thing.
Yeah.
So we'll probably do, like, our top 7 favorite summer horror movies, if you want to start with your number 7.
I will start with my number 7. I picked probably the most cliche one. I Know What You Did Last Summer. We actually just watched this last night. I'm sure a lot of people, I mean, this is like probably one of the bigger horror movies that people would know about.
Yeah, especially in the summer.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly go over the plot and whatnot. But it stars, hang on, I'm sorry, let me back up. It's directed by Jim Gillespie and it was written by Kevin Williamson. It stars Jennifer Love Hewitt, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Daphne from the Scooby-Doo live action, Ryan Felipe, and Freddie Prinze Jr., who played Fred in the live action Scooby-Doo. I guess it was loosely based on a novel of the same name that came out in 1973 by Lois Duncan.
Which I didn't know that.
I did not know that either. I had no idea because it's kind of like, this movie's very corny.
It's so cheesy.
And like critics kind of gave it like, what the hell, but it was a huge commercial success at the box office. It was like a $17 million movie and it made $123 million at the box office.
Shit.
Yeah, so it definitely, people liked this movie. I personally didn't really care for it. It's not my favorite. Obviously, it's why it's my number 7. But it talks about these 4 kids that one night they're out. I think it takes place in North Carolina.
I know. I thought it took place in like a more Maine.
Southport, North Carolina is where it takes place in. They're out on the beach. These 4 friends. They're like at having like a bonfire, and they're drinking and whatnot, and like, you know, being all the cliche. Like it's kind of cringy to
What was
watch.
the name for it? They called it. It wasn't Dawson's Creek, but she's like, "Do you want to go to Dawson's Cove?"
Yeah, Dawson's Cove, and it's like all this like shout out stuff to like the '90s like TV shows, just the whole '90s vibe is like this movie, like at least
painfully in your face.
Yeah, at least for like I don't know
the first beginning of it.
Yeah. I don't know, but so they're all sitting there at Dawson's Cove or whatever, having a bonfire, and they're drinking. They're having a good time. There's a lot of like, you know, cheesy like romantic sexual things going on.
And the guy's like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, it's kind of hard to watch. It's like painfully like awkward. Some of the scenes, it really is, because it's just like, this is so like bad. This should have been like on like one of our worst movies.
Yeah.
But it's so they're drunk and everything. They're having a good time, and they leave the Dawson's Cove and they're driving home, and one of the kids is climbed out of the sunroof, and he's like drunk as hell. And he's like, being a douchebag, and they like as he's doing this, they're like all distracted. The guy driving, who's Freddie Prinze Jr., hits this guy that's like walking in the middle of the road, and they like kind of wipe out, hit the guardrail. The car's fine or whatever, and they're like freaking out, like we just killed somebody. And then one of this other kid that came by, who has got a crush on Jennifer Love Hewitt, comes by and like kind of catches them like in the act or like during the accident. But they just say, "Oh, we just had a little car trouble is all, blah blah blah. It's nothing to worry about." So he kind of takes off, and they end up putting the body in the trunk of the car, and they drive the body to the docks and they dump the body in the water. And yeah, that's basically the movie right there. Then a year later goes by, and Jennifer Love Hewitt gets this note saying, "I know what you did last summer."
The iconic.
And so like she goes and like finds her friends that she was with that night, and like somebody knows what we did and everything like that. And the one guy, he's kind of he's like the typical douchebag. The one, yeah, he's like, oh, somebody's just messing with us. I'll straighten it out. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, being a douche.
And then slowly but surely, they all get picked off one by one. Essentially, like the killer goes around, and he's actually in a fisherman's slicker, which like you guys, I'm sure all of you have seen this movie.
So it's called a slicker?
I don't know. That's what they were calling it in the movie.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like a big raincoat.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it's like fisherman terms for a raincoat. But he's wielding like an ice pick hook. And yeah, he basically just terrorizes them and kills them one by one, essentially. And Jennifer Love Hewitt, she escapes, obviously. And I believe Freddie Prinze Jr. does, because he's in the second one too, I think. And this spawned, I believe, 3 more movies after this one. So there's like, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, I Always Know What You Did Last Summer.
So dumb.
Yeah, and it's basically the whole same pretext, same killer, you know. So basically the killer, they come to find out, was the guy that they dumped in the water.
Yes.
He didn't really die. He came, you know, he wasn't dead.
Which if someone did that to me, I'd come back and kill them too.
I know, I totally agree with the guy. Like, they literally just could have brought me to the hospital. I was alive, but they tried to kill me again, basically.
And I will say, like, watching this movie after watching Scary Movie, it's unbearable. Like, you can't take it seriously. Like, we were cracking up watching it, all the Scary Movie references.
Yeah, because literally, like, Scary Movie with this movie, they pulled so much from this movie to make Scary Movie. Like, like, it's just like, oh yeah, I remember that from Scary Movie. Oh yeah, I remember that part from Scary Movie. It was like every other quote or scene they did, it was Scary Movie.
It's like, Ray, we hit a boot.
Yeah, oh my god, it was just like, that whole movie was literally just made fun of in Scary Movie, so.
It's so funny.
That goes to show, like, how, like, I don't know, it's very corny. It's
easy to make fun of.
It's a good idea for a movie, but it's very corny too at the same time.
It's so corny, yeah.
But it's definitely got that summery like vibe. You know, this takes place on July 4th, so
July 4th weekend. It's like a beachy town. Everyone's fishing. There's like festivals going on.
Oh yeah, there's like crawfish boils going around, big seafood boils and everything. It's definitely like a perfectly summery kind of movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
a worth like a yearly rewatch, I would say.
No, I mean it's good to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, it spawned a lot of cool. I mean, like the hook thing, like that was so iconic. Like the killer with the hook, like that was like such a like Candyman was like the only one that did that.
Yeah,
that
that's
had a hook,
true.
you know.
That's true.
It was like its weapon was a hook. So
yeah, that's true.
It's pretty iconic, and it's definitely an iconic movie. I mean, it's kind of our all-star cast as well.
I know. I even saw an interview not too long ago with Jennifer Love Hewitt, and she was saying like she could never live that line down where she's like, "What are you waiting for?
Yeah,
what are you waiting for?" She
for?
said when people see her on the street, that's still what they say. She's like, I can't live it down.
I know. Yeah, it had a killer soundtrack too. I mean, it had like the Offsprings, Typo Negative, Korn.
Yeah, that was just the time too.
Yeah, it was just the time. It had really good soundtrack. But yeah, that's my number 7. That is I Know What You Did Last Summer.
All right, for my number 7, I picked the second movie in the Fear Street franchise. It's Fear Street 1978, which these movies were all Netflix originals based on the R.L. Stine book series under the same name called Fear Street. But they all take place in different. I think the first one is like, or the last one's like 1666 or something. Yeah. First one's like takes place in the 90s. The second one is 1978, but the second one specifically takes place over the summer in a summer camp. You have all like the makings of a great scary movie. You have no parents around, no authority, nothing, just kids running wild in the woods.
I know the camp counselors, they're like 18 years old. Yeah. You know, they're not like an adult by any means. You know,
it's like all the things you need to make a perfect scary movie because everything makes sense at that point. And if you haven't seen or read the Fear Street series, it's basically about this like folklore of a witch that used to live there. Her name was Sarah Fear, and there's Shady Side and Sunny Side, like 2 different towns. Yeah. And everybody that lives in Shady Side is supposedly cursed. And this movie kind of goes into why they are cursed and what they did to Sarah Fear, and it was kind of similar to like the Salem witch trials kind of thing. Like they thought she was a witch, so they burned her, and then she cursed the town.
Yeah,
and people get possessed by her spirit essentially, and then they become these different monsters and track down everybody and kill them.
Yes,
but I love this movie because it's like everybody you don't think would die dies.
Oh, I know.
Like nobody's off the table.
Yeah, I
main
know.
characters, everybody is fair game in this movie.
Yep. Exactly.
And we watched it initially when it came out, and then we just watched it a couple nights ago, and I forgot how good it was.
Yeah.
But it is a really, really good movie.
No, he definitely, whoever directed this, like, they did a good job.
Lee Janiak? I don't know who that is.
Don't know. Does she do all three of them? Or
yeah.
He or she?
I think so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it came out July 9th, right in the middle of summer.
Nice.
Definitely just... summer vibes.
That one in particular, just being at the summer camp, you know.
Camp counselors, you know.
Yeah.
Doing it in the cabins, like it definitely gives me Friday the 13th.
And you wouldn't think too with like it being an R.L. Stine, because R.L. Stine, you like obviously,
Kids.
you know, but it's pretty violent, and there's a lot of like, you know, sexual innuendo in it and everything too. But it's, you know, obviously this is more of like an adult, you know, teenager book. This isn't the Goosebumps, you know.
No, this is definitely more like adolescence.
Yeah, for like, you know, young adult / you know, adult.
Yeah, because even in the first movie of this franchise, I think we talked, I don't know if I put it as one of my top kills, but it's,
you did the bread slicer.
But like her hand goes through a bread slicer, and it shows most of it. And I remember watching this being like, R.L. Stine did this?
I know, right?
Like, what?
This is not the R.L. Stine I knew.
But I love it.
Yeah, when I originally watched it too, I was like, this isn't going to be like it's going to be like a Goosebumps movie.
Like a kid's one,
it's going to be kind of corny, like goofy, more funny than anything.
It's pretty dark.
But no, it was like, actually, I'm like, wow, this is like a straight up horror movie, like slasher film.
But it's got aspects of like all these different summer movies. I feel like there's almost like some Parent Trap aspects of it too. It reminds me with the cabins and everything, and then they play pranks on each other.
Yes.
And it's just all the vibes, all the summer vibes for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree.
But if you haven't seen this trilogy, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's very good.
I like it.
Second one's probably my favorite. But like I said, the first one's a little more, kind of eases you into it because it happens more in like, not modern day, but like late 90s, I would say, I think is what it is.
It was 94.
Like they're at the mall and stuff. It's a little more easy to relate to than the last one, which is like 1600s.
Yeah, that's, you know, going back for like 400 years almost.
They're talking in like, you know, proper English.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, for my number 6, I picked. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, burping. 1997's Funny Games. So this is an Austrian psychological horror thriller written by Michael Hanke. This is probably like one of the most iconic horror movies ever.
Yeah.
Just because it's very like shocking, and it's German. It's a German horror, well, Austrian, but they're speaking in German in the movie and everything. But basically, it starts out with Georg Schrober and his wife Anna and their son Georgi, which is just George in German. And their dog Ralphie. They arrive at their holiday home beside the lake in Austria, and they're getting like settled in and everything. Anna's in the house. She's like getting like supper ready for them, and Georg and Georg Jr., they're down at the boat, getting the boat like ready to go sailing the next day, and she gets a knock at the door, and it's this kid, Peter, I believe his name is, and he's asking if he can borrow some eggs, and they're like, you know, what's going on?
Where'd you come from?
Yeah, where'd you come from? And he's like, oh, I'm so-and-so's, you know, son or whatever like that. And she's like, oh yeah, no problem, come in. And she lets him in, gives some eggs, and he breaks the eggs like immediately. Yep. And then as he's in there, he like also pushes the cell phone into the water of the sink, and so the phone's now not working. You kind of like the whole time okay, they're like up to no good. And then his other friend, and then his other friend Paul shows up, and he's like, you know, calling the Anna a bitch and everything like that. Like, give my friend some eggs, and then that's when Georg and Georgi come back from the boat, and they're like, what's going on? You know, blah blah blah. And then Paul takes a golf club and hits Georg in the leg, and he like basically shatters his knee right there. And so like right there, it's like, okay, these kids are, and they're young kids too. They're probably like 18, 19. They're not like, you know, they're still kind of like adolescent in a way. And then basically from that point on, it just goes into complete mayhem. They like tie them up. They're like wanting them to play games, like asking them questions, and like, okay, and then like they have a gun, so they're like, let's play roulette and stuff like that. And it's like, it's kind of disturbing too. And then like but it's weird too at the same time because it's like there's something like odd going on here as well. So basically they kill the son who's like, I don't know, he's probably like 10 years old.
Which is shocking, like to see a kid killed in a movie, which usually doesn't ever happen. Usually they don't show it at least.
Yeah, they don't really show. Well, they don't really show them actually killing him, but they show his like body afterward, which was like, okay, that's wild. But the son does. He gets away at first, and then they catch him and bring him back, and that's when they kill him. But then they leave the Anna and Georg Sr. alive, and so they like untie each other, and then Anna goes and like tries to run for help because Georg can't because his leg shattered. And they end up catching him again. But when they come back with Anna, they're gonna kill them both. She ends up getting the gun and shoots Peter and kills Peter. But then all of a sudden, I don't know what. I don't get it. He freaks out. Paul freaks out, and he's like, no, and he grabs the TV remote and he points it at Anna, and it like rewinds everything. Yeah. So Paul doesn't end up dying, or Peter doesn't end up dying. And like they get to relive it again, basically, and that still doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure there's like some sort of like hidden meaning to it. And I was reading like some like what the psychology is behind it, and I guess it's like has to do with like just how society focuses on violence and everything.
That's what I was going to say
in the media. When
we first watched that, I researched it after, and that's what they were saying. Because like you don't see any of the violence in this movie. They cut it out. Like they cut from scene to scene and scene, so you can like your mind kind of fills in the blanks, but it doesn't show the violence.
Yeah.
And you're left there kind of wondering, like, I wonder why it's not showing it. And then you read afterwards that the director was like, people are obsessed with violence in the world.
Yeah, that's the whole point of him with the rewind. I think is because like every time you see something crazy, you like want to rewind it and watch it again. Like a car pile up or like somebody like I don't know.
It makes you feel bad for watching it to begin with.
Yeah, but it's just that part was very odd. And at the end, they take Georg they killed by this point. After they rewind and everything, and then they take Anna out on the boat, and they like tie cinder blocks to her feet and dump her over the boat. And then it ends with them going to another house and like saying, "Oh, I'm Anna's son-in-law," or something like that. Can we have some eggs? So they've been going around doing this to the houses on this lake, and it's kind of like science fiction-y at the same time because it's very like odd, especially the last ending. It just really throws it off. But it's a good movie. It's definitely like not a campy movie by any means. It's kind of on the darker side, but it's definitely a really good movie. And I'm sure some of you guys have probably seen the 2007 remake. It was also directed by the same guy who made this one, Michael Hanke. So, yeah.
But it's funny with movies like this because it's like they take place in such a nice time of year and such a nice house, and it's like the contrast of being in like a beautiful beach house with your family, and then the contrast between that and something so dark happening, these people breaking in and doing all this dark shit and killing your kid and making you like they literally had to sit there with their dead kid on the ground and just
I know, and it's kind of sad. Like they're like the mom's like hysterically crying, and then like
and they did nothing to deserve this.
No, they literally they were like wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. And these Peter and Paul, they were two sociopaths. I mean, they have no regard for anybody else.
It's like The Strangers, but I always find that interesting. It's like movies like that where it's so brightly contrasted, and then there's something dark so happening, but the background's so pretty. Like they're on this beautiful lake and like this nice vacation. Because you have this like sense that when you go places like that, you're safe. I feel.
And I do like at the ending though, like when Paul's talking to the lady, he like winks at the camera. Like he looks at the camera and he winks. Yeah, he winks because it's like you know what they're gonna do, you know. And then that's how it literally ends with him winking at the camera.
Yeah.
So it gives you like they've been going around this lake doing this to families and stuff like that. And actually, that's what happened too when little Georgie ran away. He went to like the neighbor's house. Found them like shot to death, and they're like up in their bedrooms, so they killed them too. So it's a dark movie, but it's definitely a good summertime movie.
Okay, so for my next one, number 6, I picked not a movie but a TV series. I picked American Horror Story in 1984, which this is just I have to rewatch it again because it's summer now. But this just like encompasses everything I think of when I think of like a summer scary movie. Like it takes place in the 80s, big hair, big music. They got the sweatbands, they're going to the dance classes. Richard Ramirez is in it. They're at a summer camp in the middle of nowhere. Like the soundtrack is all 80s. It's just like chef's kiss.
Billy Idol plan.
It's Chef's Kiss. It's perfect. It's everything you need. It's like a long lost villain, Mr. Jingle, shows up to the summer camp because people were mean to him. It's like Jason Voorhees, and the school or the camp nurse is like has it in for him, wants to help him. Like, it's just everything you need, and they all get picked off one by one. It's perfect. Like, you can't. There's nothing better than that. To me, that's just screams summer.
It is a good season there. I don't think I've seen the whole entire season, but I've seen.
It gets a little. I mean, every American Horror Story season gets a little weird, I would say.
I honestly just like the first 3 American Horror Stories.
I think sometimes they get like carried away towards the end because it gets to the point where, everybody gets killed, but then they're stuck in the camp still.
Yeah.
And then people come to the camp and they kill them because they're ghosts.
Yeah, it's like the ghost journal killers. It's just kind of like corny as hell, like they're killing ghosts.
But it pulls from like so many different movies. Like it pulls from like Halloween, Friday the 13th. Like it pulls aspects from so many things. When I watch it, I'm like, oh, that's a complete nod to Friday the 13th. That they pulled that right from there.
Yeah, or Sleepaway Camp or something
Sleepaway
like
Camp,
that.
yeah. Like it's definitely trying so hard to put all of these 80s horror movies into one. And I think it does a really good job for the most part.
I definitely agree.
It gives a motive to everything. It's just... There's good kills, too. Like, this one kid, I remember he gets put, I think, in the fryer. Like, like, where you make, like, french fries and stuff. Like, the frying water.
Fryer?
Yeah. And his skin is all blistered off. And he's, like, this pretty boy. It's really good. I love it.
You guys that listen that work in restaurants, I used to work in a restaurant. And, oh, my God, I got oil from the fryer on my hand one time. That hurt
did you
like
blister?
hell. Oh, God, yeah. It bubbled up so bad. I mean, the oil is, like, 500 degrees.
Oh, God. But, yeah, they bring in all senses of the 80s they bring in. Like, once they bring in Richard Ramirez, I was just like, fuck yeah. We're bringing in everything. Oh, yeah,
they're bringing in, like, the whole satanic panic thing that was going on in the 80s. Like, they really embody the whole 80s feel in that season, everything. For sure.
You would not, to me, I'm like, you would not know this was filmed in, like, I think it's filmed in, like, 2019. I'm like, you would literally...
Oh, wow, that's pretty new, then.
I'm like, you would literally think that this was done in the 80s, the way it's filmed.
Right.
But, yeah, I just... You're right with the satanic panic. I forgot about that part.
Oh, yeah, they definitely, like... bring that in there and make note of it.
Yeah, it's just funny to me. And then the short shorts that guys used to wear, like the little spandex shorts, they're all wearing those.
Yeah.
Top tier, though. Highly recommend.
All right, so for my number 5, I picked 1981's The Burning. So this movie was directed by Tony Maylam, and it stars Brian Matthews, Leah Ayres, Brian Backer, and a few others, and it follows the summer camp caretaker who was horribly burnt from a prank gone wrong. So, and he seeks revenge on a nearby summer camp years later. And this actually makes makes the film. This film actually marks the debuts of actors Jason Alexander, who plays George Costanza in Seinfeld. Fisher Stevens, don't know who that is, and then Holly Hunter. This movie was their breakout role, essentially, for them to become famous.
How old was the guy from Seinfeld? He must have been like a teenager or not.
Yeah, I mean, he was probably, right, probably 20, I'd imagine, somewhere around there. Well, yeah, I guess this movie, this is based on the New York urban legend of Cropsey. I'm sure a lot of you have heard that story about Cropsey the Maniac. The screenplay was actually written by Bob Weinstein and Peter Lawrence, and from a story conceived by producer Harvey Weinstein. So the Weinstein brothers had basically wrote the script to this movie, essentially, and then produced it and whatnot. So basically, it got a lot of bad reviews from critics because it's like there are like way too many similarities to like Friday the 13th, which had just come out the year prior, and then part 2 was, I think, later on that fall that was going to be coming out. But it's a cult classic. I mean, it's got great iconic kill scenes, and it's the killer. He's got the hedge clippers. And that's what he uses to kill.
I've never seen that in another horror movie, I don't think. It's pretty unique.
And there's like I think there's a scene too where like this kid gets eaten by like a snake or something. And not eaten, but like a snake bites him, and like they like put a bunch of snakes, and that's how he ends up dying, is like by a bunch of snake bites and everything like that. But it definitely gives, I mean, just like the campiness, it's a bunch of kids at like a summer camp, and they start like disappearing, and like nobody really realizes that like all these kids are disappearing until like the last 15 minutes, and then it's like all pandemonium, like what the hell, and like the killer's like killing everybody in plain sight now, but it goes around like picking them off one by one, trying to stay like out of sight.
Well, I feel like that's what's scary too about like camp back in the day. I feel like in the 80s, 90s, there wasn't. I feel like people were just off on their own. So like if you were missing or you were taken, nobody would really know.
No,
it's not like today where they're like really strict and there's phones and things.
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
And there's phones and stuff now because I mean, like back then, obviously, that could really happen. I mean, it's you got no way of calling for somebody, and now you got phones and everything and buddy systems and whatnot. But yeah, it's definitely a good one. Definitely a summery one for sure. It flopped at the box office. It was a $1.5 million film, and it only made $700,000 at the box office. So definitely flopped there. Like lost over half the money. So yeah, that's.
Ooh, that hurts.
But it gave. I mean, but thanks to that movie, we have George Costanza. So
it's probably a cult classic.
It's definitely gained a cult following over the years.
Yeah.
But like immediately upon its release, it was not good. People were comparing it as like a rip-off of Friday the 13th. And
I mean, there's a lot of movies that ripped off Friday the 13th.
No, I know. But Friday the 13th was like the first one to kind of do that. Like the mass killer. I mean, this guy, the summer camp caretaker, he has like a bag over his head like Jason did in the first or the second one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Before the hockey mask?
Yeah, before the hockey mask, he had like a burlap sack over his head, and this is the same thing this killer had. It was like killing with big sharp knives and, gardening utensils.
Of course.
So
I do think that's unique, though. I will give the gardening utensils unique.
The hedge shears, those are pretty cool. Pruning shears is what they're called.
Pruning shears.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my number 5, I picked 2017's It Chapter 1, which... This movie's definitely just like all the summer feels. It takes place in the summer of June 1989, and I never had a childhood like this, but it makes me like feel like I did watching this movie. Like it's just a bunch of kids riding around on their bicycles till morning till night, running away from a giant clown. Like I mean, I wish that part wasn't in my childhood, but like running away from this giant clown, and it's just all the summer vibes. They're playing in like not like the sewer, but like in the river in front of the sewer, and
like
school's out, like it's just all the summery vibes. But if anybody's unfamiliar with the story of it, obviously they're being chased by Pennywise, all of these kids.
Yes.
And chapter 1 is when they're all still like young adolescents, and then they come back in chapter 2 when they're adults. But in the first one, they're like, okay, we defeated Pennywise, but it's gonna come back in. What is it? 27 years.
27, yeah.
And we all have to like promise to come back and fight it again, and they all do the bloodborne pathogen thing where they cut their wrist. They cut their wrist.
Cut their hand and do like the blood oath.
Actually, somebody told me the other day that they showed their kid it for the first time, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like, how'd they react to it? And she was like, the only part that scared her is when they cut their wrist and then they shook hands.
Oh, really? That's funny.
And I was like, at least she's hygienic. I mean,
oh man, that's funny.
I love it. But no, this is definitely just summer vibes. Like I said, it makes me wish I had a childhood like that back in the 80s where everyone's just running around out on the bikes, playing with each other in the streets, that kind of vibe.
I know that. Well, that's the cool thing with Stephen King, though, because like the original It, that was like in the 60s they were talking about, so it was like in the 60s. And it was just cool how he incorporates so much of like the childhood factor into the movie too. Like
making the paper boats.
Yeah, just like he focuses more on that than the actual clown part. I
agree.
More or less, that's what he's more focusing on. It's more kind of like an adventure movie or like a coming of age movie.
It does feel like a coming of age movie.
For a lot of reason. I mean, and the book obviously goes into like far more detail about it.
Yeah, but just watching it makes me feel like I grew up in Derry, Maine, and that's like a normal childhood memory. You know?
No, I definitely agree.
Just definitely summer vibes.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But he does a good job at capturing all that essence of like the summer.
I know, I love it.
All right. So for my number, we have 4 now.
Yeah.
Okay. So for my number 4, I picked 1972's Last House on the Left. So this was actually Wes Craven's directorial debut. It was produced by Sean Cunningham, and the film stars Sandra Peabody, David Hess, Fred Lincoln, and Jermaine Rain. I don't know. Jermaine. But this movie's pretty violent movie especially for the time.
Violent.
It's very, very violent. It's a rape revenge movie. And it's actually really badass, the revenge part of it. It's very good. But I guess Wes Craven, he based this film on a Swedish film called The Virgin Spring that was directed by Ingmar Bergman. and I can't pronounce the Sweden name because it's
in
a word what it actually translates to. But he basically, this is kind of like a retelling of that movie that came out in 1960. But just real quickly go over this. It starts out, it's like David Hess and like these, I don't know, like derelict friends are all at like some crack house in New York City, and these girls are down there for summer, they're at their parents' camp upstate, and they go down to the city because they're like, we're bored, we want to go see the city and whatnot. So they go down there and they like run into like one of David Hess's like derelict friends and like, yeah, we got weed, like come back to my house. And of course, in the 70s, it's like these naive girls, they go back to this house.
Everyone was naive
and they get
70s.
kidnapped, and then like they drive them like back upstate and they rape and kill them. Yeah, and leave them for dead. But one of the girls ends up living, and she gets back to her parents' cabin. But at the same time, the David Hess and his gang of derelicts are like, at the cabin too, because like their car broke down or something. I can't remember exactly how they end up there, but they end up at that cabin and they're like staying there basically. And then they learn that that's who hurt their daughter, and the parents like just enact like awesome revenge. Like they don't kill them like immediately. There's a sweet chainsaw battle scene, like very over the top violence for 1972. But that's essentially it. And then like the parents kill all of them, including David Hess and everything.
It's definitely like a fuck around and find out kind of movie.
Yeah, big time. And it's very graphic and very violent though. So it was actually a huge success too for Wes Craven. It was made on a $90,000 budget, made $2 million at the box office.
Probably because everyone's like, "Wow, come and see how appalling this is."
Well, it was like you've probably seen or heard the trailer. Keep telling yourself it's only a movie. Yeah. It's only a movie because it was like a huge shock. That was what all these like grindhouse movies were going for in the 70s. It was just like pure shock factor. Like let's make it most outrageous. Like what's that other one? House on the Edge of the Park, and then there was that one where the guy was making the snuff films. I forget the name of that one, but that was another one where it was actually used the same trailer part. It's only a movie. Just keep telling yourself it's only a movie. It's only a movie.
Yeah, that movie was definitely like shocking. Like when I first watched it, if I didn't know going into it that there was a sweet revenge at the end, that I wouldn't have kept watching it. Like if I was in the theater and I didn't know anything about it and that was the movie, I would have walked out. Yeah,
and it definitely I think also
I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah, came to bring about I Spit on Your Grave, which is probably the most ultimate revenge movie of all time.
It definitely reminds me of I Spit on Your Grave, but I kind of like how the parents are the ones that are like, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I definitely was like, wow, this is messed up, but this is awesome because the parents are like doing even worse to them what they did to them. It
reminds me that there's one movie too. It's not a horror movie, but like the dad like finds the guy that killed his daughter and like tortures him to death. What is it? Oh, Lullaby and Citizen.
With Gerard Butler. That's another good one.
He like tortures him and films it. That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, and then this was remade in 2009 too. I'm sure a lot of you, more of you, have seen. It's a lot less violent. I mean, it's still very violent, but it's not as violent as this one because I think there's like now, we did watch ratings and standards and stuff have to be put up.
Sarah Paxton in it.
Yes, yeah, but that one, I think this one definitely is the 72 version is a lot more messed up than the remake.
What do you think went in the 70s?
That's what I mean. There was like no like rating system really, It had an X rating, but I mean that didn't really mean anything at the time,
Doesn't really narrow it down.
Yeah.
Okay, so for my number 4, I picked a movie called Summer of '84, which this is definitely an underrated movie, but this is like totally just like summer. Like it reminds me of like Stranger Things before Stranger Things like became a show or anything. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
Sure.
It's like 4 young boys living out their summer in 1984, but it actually is pretty dark. Like the main kid, his name is Davey. They're playing this game where they run around at night.
Yeah, what's it called?
It's called like Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler or something. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm mixing that up with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because that's the thing. Nightcrawler. He's like, why don't we play Nightcrawler anymore? I might be mixing that up in my brain. Sometimes I do that. But regardless, I don't know. They're playing outside, and he looks at his neighbor's window. His neighbor's name is Mackie. He's a cop, and he sees a young boy there, and he's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then, he's eating cereal the next day. And this is, like, the vibes of the 80s. He's eating cereal. He looks on the milk carton, and there's a missing kid on there.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's the kid I saw in the cop's house.
Yeah.
So he's on this whole rampage where he's, like, convinced the cop is this serial killer going around killing young boys.
Yes.
And the kid's pretty cool. Like, I would have hung out with him had I been young at that age. His whole room is decorated with conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff from, like, a magazine. It's all over the walls.
Yeah.
He's constantly reading about conspiracy theories. So
yeah,
everyone,
he's very, like, smart kid when it comes
he's
to...
super smart.
Like, very, like, I guess not smart, but, like...
Open-minded?
Intuitive, yeah. Open-minded.
Yeah.
Questioning. He's very questioning.
Yes. And so kind of the whole movie is, like, him and his friends trying to prove that this guy's the killer, and his friends are kind of just going along with it for some summer fun. Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah, we don't really believe it, whatever, but Davy's convinced.
Sure.
And, basically at the end of the movie, he is right. Like, Davy was the killer. He was going around killing everybody, and...
Yeah.
Alright, sorry, my phone said it was reconnecting. I just want to make sure it was still recording.
Mm-hmm.
But Davy was going to be the next victim of Mackie. So basically, if he hadn't done something, he would have been the next victim. But it's so creepy. Like, Davy's a paper boy, and Mackie's like, "Oh, can you come inside real quick?" And
he's actually in Mackie's house too at one point, and like he didn't know at this point that Mackie was the serial killer yet. No. He would like notice like he had like a padlock room in the basement and stuff like that. And
weird shit.
Just like little clues, and he was like questioning all that stuff. It's like, what's in there? What's that? And all that stuff, and Mackie, he's right, Mackie is this killer. And he kind of was his last victim at the end of the movie, too, because he does kidnap him still.
It gets really dark at the end, because they kidnap Davy, and then I think his friend, Woody.
Yeah.
And he, like, slits Woody's throat. Like,
right
and it shows it.
Yeah.
And I was thinking it was going to be more of an innocent movie. Like I said, it reminded me so much of Stranger Things, that I was going to be similar to that.
Because there was really no gore.
Dark.
Yeah, there was no gore up until that point,
But there was, like, creepy shit. Like, they were broken into his house and they found a shirt covered in blood.
Yes, yeah.
But just, it is a good movie. I'm glad we...
Yeah.
I don't think I watched it before the last time we saw it. We saw it, like, a week ago, and that was the first time I've seen it.
Yeah, that's the first time I watched it, too.
It's definitely an underrated coming-of-age film. I think it's on Shudder and Tubi.
Yeah, I think Shudder did have it, yeah.
But, like, it has all the... Like, it's kind of like it, like being a kid back in the 80s. Like, they got the walkie-talkies that you're setting up everywhere.
Yes.
You're doing your paper route.
Sure, yeah.
It's a cool movie.
Yeah, it definitely gives you, like, the Stranger Things kind of vibe, for sure.
Totally Stranger Things kind of vibe, for sure.
All right, for my number, what are we on here? 4 now, I think.
Three?
3? No, are we in 3?
Well, I just did my number 4. So you'd be on your
I guess I am on my number 3. Okay. For my number 3, I picked Friday the 13th. So this is kind of cliche, obviously, but
it's like the summer movie.
It is the summer movie. So I'm sure everybody's seen Friday the 13th. It's not Jason Voorhees.
So, if you're watching this.
Jason's mother, but it's basically a typical. This is probably the godfather of like the summer campy horror films. It was directed by Sean S. Cunningham. He directed something else, too, that I just mentioned. I can't remember what movie. But yeah, basically it stars Betsy Palmer, who's Jason's mother, and Kevin Bacon. There's some other people in here, too, but I don't think any of them really went on to do anything other than...
Oh, definitely Kevin Bacon did.
Kevin Bacon definitely did, but again, I'm not going to really go into this. I'm sure everybody has seen this, but it's basically... in 1958, this young boy drowns, Jason Voorhees, because of neglect to the camp counselors that were like inside, fornicating and doing the naughty. And now it's present day 1980. The same camp where Jason had drowned has been opened again, and Jason's mother goes there and starts killing all the camp counselors. So Mrs. Voorhees is the killer in this one, not Jason. Jason doesn't come until the second one. Mm-hmm. But it's a good movie. It did very well. It was a $500,000 budget. It made $59 million at the box office, so it definitely was a huge commercial success. And it gave, spawn to a whole bunch of other awesome Friday the 13th movies. I mean, there was, I think, 10 of them. Yeah. Within the whole year of like 1980, there were 8 of them, I think, in the whole year of, the whole decade of the 80s. It was basically every year there had a new Friday the 13th movie coming out.
Yeah, and I love the first one because it has one of the best jump scares, I think. And, jump scares and like iconic horror movie moment, I would say. You know, at the very end when she's
Yes.
in the canoe, she thinks she got away, which I don't know why the fuck you go in the canoe anyways. Like you're waiting for the cops, just wait on
I don't
land.
get
Why are you in a
canoe?
And she's like playing in the water all dramatically, and you're thinking it's gonna end, and then it comes out of the water as Jason and just takes her down.
Yeah.
And you're like, finally we see Jason, because you think it's him the whole time, kind of, but then you realize it's actually his mom.
Yeah, his mom is actually the one doing the killing and everything like that. But yeah, and then, but it's definitely, this is like the summer movie for horror. I mean,
and that reminds me, because when I touched on American Horror Story 1984 earlier, there's a whole thing in there about a kid who drowned in the water because the camp counselors were, fornicating.
Yes, fornicating.
And his brother survived, and he ended up going on to be the killer. But the mom died as well, and it was this whole thing. But I'm like, I remember watching that, and I'm like, that came right from Friday the 13th. Like,
right, exactly.
That exact scene, pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just... again, with the mask killer, too, once Jason makes his appearance in the second... Well, he doesn't get his mask until the third one, actually, so you don't really get the hockey mask iconic Jason until the third movie. So, but yeah, it's just full of... I mean, I don't even gotta really talk about it, because it's just... Everybody has seen this movie.
It always reminds me of the opening scene in Scream, when Ghostface calls Drew Barrymore, and she gets the question wrong when he says who was the killer of Friday the 13th, and she says Jason.
No, it was Mrs. Voorhees, Jason's
wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Now your boyfriend dies. Okay. So my number 3 is Sleepaway Camp, which Friday the 13th walked, so Sleepaway Camp could run. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure Friday the 13th came out in 1980.
Yeah.
And then Sleepaway Camp came out in 1983. But it's an American slasher film. I think we've talked about it here before. I don't know if you knew this, but it was filmed in upstate New York.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Huh.
That's where we're from. That's why I said something about it.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's similar to like the typical campy slasher movie, but not in the sense that it's just some pissed off man in a mask.
Yes.
Like most of these horror movies, I feel like are just some rage-filled man going around killing everybody with a mask. But this movie, spoiler alert, it's been out for like 40 years. The killer is a young girl, and it's just the way it's filmed is so cheesy and campy. Like it's filmed first person, where it's like, you see the victim and they're like, oh, what are you doing here? And then they just get stabbed to death and you can't see who's doing it because you're watching it like, almost like when they film Halloween behind Michael Myers' mask.
Yeah, it's like point of view. Like you're the killer, essentially,
And everybody's like, oh, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
But the killer is Angela, and she does some savage stuff. She drops like a beehive on this girl while she's in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
She's a pretty relentless killer, and she says maybe 2 words the whole movie.
Yeah, literally. Like, very soft-spoken girl.
Very soft-spoken. Her mom, I'm pretty sure she's actually a boy, and her mom made her dress as a girl.
Yes.
And at the end, she's like naked laying on the beach.
Yeah, it's the iconic scene. She's like screaming. Like, she's not even screaming. She's like, like making this weird noise, and she's like naked standing there. Like, it was just... It's
like her head's like on a stick almost. I don't even remember.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I don't know how they did that. It's very scary and disturbing
looking. It is very disturbing looking. That's why I'm saying it's similar to like Friday the 13th, but they did tweak it a little bit to make it a little unique and a little different. And this went on to do 2 more movies, and in every one, Angela is the killer.
Yes.
She becomes like the camp counselor. She goes on to kill, becomes the camp counselor again, goes on to kill. But some of the people in this movie straight up deserved it. Like, I remember the chef was like being creepy towards her.
He was like a pedophile. And he was like, come here, little girl, and he was like totally a creep,
And she was like, absolutely not, and, often.
Yeah, killed him right there, which was awesome.
And I was cheering for her at that point. And she's only like a 12-year-old girl. Like, it's interesting to make the big bad killer of this movie a young kid.
I know, yeah, she's like, I don't know, maybe like 15 years old, not even.
But this is definitely a comfort movie for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an occult classic, too. I mean, that's an awesome movie. And she's actually in, the girl who plays Angela was in Terrifier 2. She's the principal of the school. So it's kind of funny to see that she's still like doing horror. Icon, doing like horror icon stuff. Okay, for my number 2, I picked 2001's Jeepers Creepers.
That's a good one.
I wouldn't really consider this like anything summery campy, because it is kind of way different than any of the other ones we've talked about. It's just kind of like they're going home from college, so you're assuming it's summer break. They're like driving back. I forget where the heck they're heading, but it
seems like they're in like Texas.
No, they're like in the Midwest, like Ohio. Yeah, they're like somewhere like there. I'm pretty sure. But it's actually, oh wow, they're actually driving through the Florida countryside. Did not
I was gonna
know
say,
that.
it seems like something southern.
Did not think that. I thought it was like Ohio. Interesting. But it's Trish and her brother Derry. They're traveling home for summer on the Florida countryside, and they get tangled up with this guy called the Creeper. It's not really even a guy. He's a freaking, like, demon.
Everybody knows the Creeper.
But, we talked about this movie on here a couple times.
I think I just talked about it like 2 weeks ago. But...
Yeah, but it was a huge success. It made, it was a $10 million movie. It made $60 million at the box office. And it's definitely gained a cult following.
Oh, yeah.
It's an awesome movie, and it's actually pretty terrifying, too.
Yeah.
Because, like, the whole time you're watching it, you think they're being chased by some, like, psycho redneck dude, that drives this old, like, jalopy piece of crap truck. And
we saw one today when we were driving. You were like, there's a Jeepers
Creepers truck. Yeah, it was like,
there's
the Jeepers Creepers truck. And, no, it ends up being this, like, demon gargoyle thing from hell.
Yeah.
And, total plot twist. Like, when I first saw it, I did not think it was going to be like that. I thought it was going to be like a slasher movie, but it's not a slasher at all.
It reminded me of, like, Joyride, when they're going back driving the big truck. I'm like, it's something like that. Some guy chasing them. But just could you imagine? Like, you think some dick is just riding your ass on the road.
Yeah.
And you're like, get off of me, and it's that thing.
Oh, I know. And, like, they basically, like, they get chased by him when the movie first starts out. Like, he tries to run him off the road, and then, like, they end up, like somehow seeing his truck again, and he's at this church, and he's dumping bodies down the chute, and they're like, what the hell? Like, this is messed up. And they go and investigate instead of just calling the police.
The sister's like, we shouldn't.
Yeah, and, like, Derry's like, no, we have to. What if the person's still alive, know? And so the person was still alive, but there's really no point, because when Derry wakes up or gets into there, there's, like, this macabre, like, body part, like, stitched thing that it's like this whole cave is like people's body parts, like, stitched together.
Because he only uses, like, certain body parts at each time.
Yeah, and he made, like, this giant, like, canvas skin mural to cover this cave wall. And I mean, this thing is massive. I mean,
very,
like hundreds of feet long. Yeah, very, very Ed Gein-esque. And then, he ends up coming back. They end up escaping, but he, like, knows it's them and goes hunting them down again, and then, like, you basically find out halfway through the movie, like, this isn't a person, this is like a demon.
I know. I don't know how to explain it, but it does just give me summer vibes. I get
what you mean. It's just like it's kind of campy, but it's not at the same time.
Something about those early 2000s movies, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just like, it's more serious. It's not, I don't think it was meant to be funny or anything like that. Like Friday the 13th and those, they were kind of like, they did goofy shit,
Yeah.
And like those other movies, there was always like kind of slapstick humor in it.
Even like Halloween when he comes out and he's wearing like just the sheet or something, I'm like, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's kind of like just dumb, like
comical.
It's not like meant to be taken. This is like, there's nothing really funny about it. It's all kind of serious stuff,
From balls to the wall. Like, it's from the beginning it goes balls to the wall.
Oh, yeah.
There's no, like, chilling at all, really.
No, like, really happy time. It's kind of like a crime movie, too, like, trying to figure out what this thing is. And, you're kind of rooting for them the whole time.
And they even go to the police station, like, you're like, in your head, you're like, I'm at the police station, I'm safe, I'm getting help, and this thing attacks all the cops. There's, like, 10 of them.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing attacks all of them.
Yeah, and kills, like, all the police, and
every single one.
Then he ends up, like, flying away with Derry at the end.
Flying? Like, literally flying away.
Literally, yeah. This thing has wings and flies. Yeah. And he comes out, I believe it's every 23rd day.
Every 23rd year or something?
What is it?
I get confused with it.
I know, I do too. I'm trying to think of it, but the lady said, because they meet this, like, psychic lady in the movie, he's like, what is it, every 23rd year for 23 days, or on the 23rd day of, I don't know.
I'm Googling it.
Yeah.
Oh. It's just saying when the new movie's coming out.
Oh, man, I wish I remembered, but it's like something creepy.
It hunts for 23 days every 23rd spring.
Yes.
By scaring its victims, it's using a scent of fear to determine what it needs to be fed on.
Yeah, she's like, terrifying. Forever, like on the 23rd day for 23 days or something.
Yes.
On the 23rd year, yes. I don't know what she saws, but
so it's super 23 creepy. Days of pure hell.
Yeah, basically this thing feeds for like a little under a month in this place, and yeah, no one's off limits, basically. Yeah, but yeah, that's my number 2.
I love Jeepers Creepers.
That's a great movie.
Alright, so for my number 2, I picked one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I've talked about it before, but I picked X, which this is definitely it just feels like I mean, it's based in 1979, but it just feels like an old. I know it came out a couple years ago. It just feels like an older movie.
Oh, definitely.
It feels campy. It feels fun. It feels summery. But essentially, it's all these porn stars, and they go to this farm in the middle of Texas and get picked off one by this old couple. Yeah. But it's just done so well. Like, even the porn scenes alone, like, they're all, like, these farmers' daughters drinking lemonade.
Oh my God,
like,
I know.
It just reminds me so much of, I don't know. It's just such a summer movie for me. They're swimming in the swamp with the gators, like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very campy, for sure.
It's so campy, and you can tell it's meant to be. Like, it's meant to pull inspiration from, like, 80s summery movies.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm pumped for the next one to come out.
For sure, for sure.
But yeah, it's like, I mean, it gets a little out of pocket with the old people, I will say.
Yeah, there's some scenes in there that I wish I didn't have to see. They were really, really weird.
But I love this movie. The cast is stacked. Mia Goth, Brittany Snow, Kid Cudi's in it. Jenna Ortega. Like, it's just a stacked cast.
Yeah, that was like one of her first, like, big roles, right?
Jenna Ortega?
Yeah.
I think Scream might have been before this. I don't know.
That? I can't remember.
But I think this is better than Scream is.
I liked it. I thought it was a cool... I mean, it wasn't my favorite movie by any means, but it was definitely...
I love it. Because, like, the one guy,
he's
filming everything, and then at the end, they find the camera, and the cops are like, what do you think's on it? Yeah. And the guy's like, one fucked up horror movie.
Yeah, and that's how it happens.
And I just love it so much. I love it. And they did pretty good. The budget was $1 million. They made $15.1 million.
That's not too bad.
It was all filmed in New Zealand.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
You were in New Zealand.
I would not have thought that. It looked like Texas.
It did. It literally looked like Texas. That's where it's based in. It's supposed to be Texas.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't realize it was filmed there. Wow.
The first one, X and Pearl, were both filmed in New Zealand. And they actually weren't even going to film Pearl, the second one. But they were like, they finished X quicker than they thought they would. So they're like, we might as well do another movie.
Yeah.
So they filmed all of Pearl in like 2 weeks.
No kidding, alright.
Because they already paid for the set and everything.
Yeah, might as well keep using the set, you know?
Which Pearl is like a prequel of the old lady, like why she got to where she is.
Yeah, it's like the prequel to X, basically, but it came out as a sequel.
A fun, summery slasher, getting murdered with all your friends.
Oh, yeah.
Swimming in the water. All that fun summer stuff, you know? That's what I think of when I think of summer. I'm like...
Summer, getting killed in the pool.
Getting picked up by all your friends.
Oh, man. Alright, so for my number 1, I picked Midsummer.
You're too much.
I mean, the name just says it all right there. I love this movie. This is probably one of the best films I've ever seen. Just because it's just made so many people uncomfortable. And I just love it. We've talked about it on here a lot, so I'm not going to go into complete detail, but
I think we only talked about it on the Cult episode.
Yeah, but we've mentioned it, I think, a lot, too, before.
That's true.
I don't know. But,
we did talk about the Cult. I remember that.
Yeah, I know, because it is a cult horror film, too. Like, cult meaning there's about a cult. Not, it's followed by a bunch of people. But just real quickly, so it's Danny, who's played by Florence Pugh.
Our Queen and Savior.
She is traumatized after her sister, who is suffering from depression, basically murdered her mom and dad, and then herself, too, with carbon monoxide poisoning. And Danny's already kind of in a bad relationship with this douchebag. I think his name is Christian.
Dick. He's such a dick.
And, he's like... I hated this guy this whole movie. Like, he is just a piece of crap.
Oh my god, how traumatizing. And
he doesn't even comfort her with this stuff.
Like her sister literally kills himself, and then she's like, oh, can you come over? Can we go to dinner or something? And he's just like, oh, I'm busy. Like, what?
Yeah, and she literally has to call him crying for him to come over to do something. But that's beside the point.
I will say there was a lot of disturbing scenes in that movie, but for me the most disturbing, I didn't like the carbon monoxide in the beginning when she has the gas mask on.
Yeah, that was really dark.
That was super dark.
Yeah.
I could handle the rest of it, I think, but that part was really dark.
Yes, I definitely agree. But so after that whole murder-suicide thing, they get invited to a midsummer festival by their Swedish friend Pele, and it's at this commune, and it's called the Harga, and it's in the rural Hälsingland region of
That's pretty good.
Sweden, and it occurs at once every 90 years. So this is a big event for this part of Sweden. And at the commune, so they fly in, from America to Sweden. This actually, it's all filmed in Sweden, this movie.
Oh, really?
Actually, this actually came out, when it was released in Sweden and the United States, like, simultaneously.
I wonder how they felt about it.
But basically, once they get there, like, they're greeted by a couple people, and a couple of Pele's, like, friends, and this British couple who are also invited by Pele's friends. It's awesome because the visuals in this movie are so, like, he just does such a good job with his visuals, Ari Aster. They take psychedelic mushrooms, and then Danny, she takes psychedelic mushrooms, and, like, their group of friends does. And she starts having, like, a really bad trip and, like, starts hallucinating about her family being dead and everything. And then she kind of, like, loses it for a second and, like, lies down. She comes back, like, the trip ends and whatever. But the visuals of that were just so cool. Like, she's just, like, sitting there. Like, they're all kind of just sitting there and, like, you're watching them. And they're, like, you can see their breathing starting to get a little bit faster. And then you, like, notice the trees, like, are breathing, too. Like, the leaves. It's like he captures what it's like to take psychedelics so well in this film.
Yeah.
And, like, what you see visually when you take psychedelics.
Yeah.
It's
That's
so
kind of what
cool.
I was thinking of earlier, too, when we were talking about funny games. Like, movies like this, I think Midsommar is a big one. Like, the contrast between, like, how beautiful the scenery is and how dark the content is always something that's crazy to me.
No, I definitely
And Midsommar is definitely one, because it's a gorgeous,
my God, just the color schemes that he picks for everything.
Oh my God, it's so
just
pretty.
Like the dresses all these cult members are wearing and stuff. It's so, like, they're so floral and pretty and bright colored.
The mountains and the so pretty.
Well, so after they get into the actual commune, they basically get thrown right into it. There's this, they go to witness this thing, it's called an Etapsup, or a soup top. It's Stupapa. I don't know how to say it. A stupa, that's what it's called. A stupa, which is basically like elderly people jumping off a cliff onto rocks below. And this actually is a real thing that I guess happened in, like, Sweden had done, like, way, way back, like, in, prehistoric times. So, they witnessed that, these Americans witnessed that. They're scared shitless, but I mean, to them, that's just something they've done for millennia, and then it just keeps on getting worse from there. Like,
it does.
I'm not going to go into it because it's a very long movie. It's like over 2 hours long. It's like almost 2.5 hours long. And, it's just a really good movie. There's a good Blood Eagle scene, which for those who don't know,
wicked Blood Eagle scene.
That's cracking the spine or ripping the rib cage out, basically.
Like putting something underneath the rib cage. So
no, they cut you down your spine, and then you peel your skin back, and then they break your ribs like outward like that, and then they pull out your lungs and put them on your shoulders.
And you're alive.
This was a torture method used by, like, the Vikings back in the 7th century and whatnot. But yeah, you're alive during that, and there's
because there's a guy that it happens to, and you can see his lungs still inflating, and his eyes are gouged out, so you can't really tell. Like, you can't really say anything, but his eyes or his lungs are still.
Yeah, so there's still life in them.
Yeah.
And, it's just.
I can't imagine. Your body must just be like.
Oh yeah.
In shock.
I know, and that's just like the effects that Ari Aster used, like when the two elderly people jump off the cliff, like when it's so, and the one didn't die, so like they went over with the big hammer and smashed his head. Like, that looks so realistic. I was like, oh my God, I have not seen gore effects like that look that real ever before. Even like, I'm sorry, like just Tom Savini, like that, he's got nothing on that. I mean.
I wonder if it was CGI or if it was.
I don't know. It looked really real, man.
Because I feel like I've actually seen somebody's head be squished when I watched that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it looked so real. Yeah. Like, you see it on, like, documenting reality or, like, Faces of Death or something.
So I Googled it, and it said that the Swedish people did not find Midsommar offensive. It said opinions were split. Some say that the film's portrayal of Scandinavians' relationship with nature resonated with them. Mm-hmm. So,
well, yeah, I mean, they are pagan at nature, I mean, that's how we all once were,
I know, but, I don't know. So they did some crazy shit in that movie. It wasn't if it was just, like, the relationship with nature, that'd be one thing, but it was some crazy shit.
No, I agree. But, that's basically, I mean, we've talked about it, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It was a pretty good success at the, $9 million budget, and then it made $50 million at the box office.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It did pretty well, and I mean, since then, it's definitely gained a cult following, and I mean, there are some disturbing scenes in it.
Yeah.
that we can't really talk about, but it's worth the watch in my opinion. It's really, I don't think it's that bad. It's not like, you know, a Serbian film or anything like that, but it's some people might find it disturbing.
I think it just leaves you very like empty and like unsettled.
It is kind of like a hopeless feeling.
The feeling it gave me, I felt very just unsettled at the end.
Oh, I don't know, because it's like, I kind of felt like, in Florence Pugh, actually, like, her character at the end, she, like, smiles. She's like, I'm part of something, like, I have a family again, and I think that was really the all-around message of the movie, you know?
I think that was best case scenario for her, honestly, because she had nobody else, and what's his name, Pele. He wanted to like reproduce with her. That's why he brought her there. That's why you bring new people in sometimes to help reproduce. There's incest going on.
Exactly.
So he liked her from the beginning, and he was always nice to her when her boyfriend was a piece of shit.
Oh yeah, and he like you could tell they had like chemistry. Like he would talk to her, and she would like be all like ooh, you know, smiling at him and stuff. Like they definitely like had chemistry going on there. Yeah. And that's what's cool about this because it's such a long movie. You can actually like watch that kind of
the character development.
Yeah, it's not like this short like just violent, gory movie. You know? No, that's why I love Ari Aster. Like his movies, like actually build so much.
But there's a lot of scenes that are just. I think that's what leaves you unsettled. There's so many scenes that are just like long and drawn out. And there's no really music or sound to film. You just feel very like empty watching it. You're just like, wow.
I don't know. I don't think like again, it's not like a Serbian film. I think it's
no. There's definitely worse out there.
Right.
I just think that's why people don't like it.
I don't know.
It's not for the everyday person. I don't think.
True. I can see that.
I know people don't like that like sophisticated level of horror. You know, people want to watch Friday the 13th and just not think about it. They don't want to think like overanalyze why things are happening.
No,
you know?
I definitely agree.
There's people that want to just watch a movie and be like, oh, it's killing people because he wants to.
Right.
Not because of this, and this. You know.
No, I agree. But that's my number one. So Midsommar, it is for the summer movies.
Well, my number one is the summer movie, the best summer movie of all time, 1975's Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing like watching Jaws in the middle of summer. It's just, it wins everything. There's no, I don't even need to argue, honestly. It's just...
That's funny.
What other movie makes people scared to go into the water?
Yeah,
Lakes,
that's true.
Oceans, pools, bathtubs.
I don't know why you'd be scared of a shark in your pool.
I've heard people say that. I've heard people say they're scared to go in their pool after watching this movie. Man. And I've even seen online screenings of this movie before they've done screenings on like a projector where people are floating in the water.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's so cool.
Yeah,
I would love to do that.
I know, when we lived in Florida at the Sebastian Inlet, I guess they used to do that. They would put like a giant like screen up, and at the inlet they would play that, and you could like float around in like that little lagoon area.
Which Florida has, I don't know if it's, where's it at? One of the beaches in Florida.
Oh, New Smyrna.
New Smyrna, yeah. It's the shark capital of the world.
Yeah, there's more shark attacks happen there than any other place.
And, yeah, Jaws is just, you're out, you're at the beach with your friends, not a care in the world, drinking, you're on your floaty, and then dun it. It's just the summer movie. I love it. It takes place in, like a fictional town in New England called Amity Island.
Yes, yep.
But yeah, it's got everything. The teenagers running off from the pool party to go have sex, and they get killed and eaten. Like, it's all the aspects, but instead of a killer, it's an animal.
Well, it's like beach horror, you know, literally beach horror movie.
And I don't think there has been one that's done this so well since Jaws. Like, when I was researching this, I saw like The Meg and things like that, but nothing has done it like Jaws.
No, because that was, I mean, what was that? Spielberg directed that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, he was just an all-star at that point in time,
he was just starting out.
Everybody loved his movies. Well, no, because he had Close Encounters of the Third Kind that came... Oh, no, wait, did that 75 or 77 did this come out?
75.
Oh, so this was before Close Encounters of the Third Kind, okay.
But people were saying it was the most terrifying movie they've ever seen, like...
I mean, it is a crazy concept because it's so real. I mean, that happens like actually a lot more than you would think, you know, shark attacks, you know. And
there's nothing really out of pocket in this movie. Like, yeah, it was a bigger shark than normal. Yeah, it was a great white. Like, maybe not as common, but...
Right, exactly.
I'm not familiar with the types of sharks that...
Yeah.
Creep.
Well, Richard Dreyfuss knew all about him in this, so...
That's true. But they do, like, I know at night, like that one couple that went to have sex on the beach and then they went swimming, I know at night sharks do sleep closer to the shore. So you're not supposed to go swimming at night because they like to put their bellies on the sand and like kind of like beach themselves.
Okay.
So you're not supposed to run out in the water at night. I do know that.
Yeah, screw that.
Which the prehistoric animals, they'll definitely freak out and eat you.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's an animal.
If someone came into your water, you'd eat them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the sharks are bad at all. No.
Yeah, no, we stand sharks here. we're on the sharks.
For sharks.
We're on Jaws' side on this. They were in his water.
No, it's a wild animal, you know.
It's a wild animal. But I just think it's definitely the summer movie. You know, I wish I was alive in 1975 and I could have seen this, and this was like the summer blockbuster, cool. And I went and saw it.
Well, we went and saw it somewhere in theaters. It was like the anniversary of it or something.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was, 45th anniversary or something. I can't remember.
There used to be this theater near us that played a bunch of old movies. Like I saw Friday the 13th when it was the anniversary. I went to go see that in theaters, which was cool because I never got a chance to see it in theaters. Yeah. A lot of those movies we don't get a chance to see.
Yeah.
Unless they replay them.
Yeah, that was cool seeing it like on the big screen because you won't ever get to see that unless it's like requested. I would love to see it on
IMAX.
That would be kind of cool. Yeah, an IMAX.
That'd be so cool.
That would be sweet. 3D.
3D. With the shark.
Jaws.
I will say I watched, I think it was Jaws 3 the other day, and it was so bad I had to turn it off. Remember I was like, this is terrible, I can't watch this? Mm-hmm. They're in like the water park.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did Jaws get in the water park?
That's what I mean. I think because like the second one was like, okay.
It was okay.
You know, it still had Brody in it, or not Brody, whatever his name was.
The
Chief. Yeah, and then like this third one, it was like none of the original cast was in it. It's
not
just
at all.
Like they're just cash grabbing at that point, you know?
Yeah, they're just marketing off the name.
Yeah.
But go check out some summer horror movies that we gave you and let us know if you have any more.
Yeah, it's a nice way to cool down. Yeah, if you guys have any other ones that we missed or ones that you think we should watch, please comment. And
yeah, those are definitely our favorite, but there's definitely a ton out there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's ones, and we haven't seen everything, so.
Yeah. But until next week, guys.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.